I think one of the most uncomfortable truths for both men and women who have a prideful spirit is when we encounter someone who is more intelligent, more informed, more articulate, and more, I'm going to say, more skilled in communication, and maybe just aware of certain things that we don't really know. And when it comes to like certain things, like, I don't know, let's say agriculture, I'm completely ignorant about it. I don't really keep up with that sort of thing. But when it comes to philosophy, and when it comes to theological ideas like God, and when it comes to moral and ethical ideas, that's a strength I have. That's something I'm very comfortable talking about. And I've learned that when a person is speaking about, let's say, agriculture, I should sit down and I should listen. I should even ask questions. Because I'm uninformed, I know that I don't know these things. I know that they have a history of understanding these things. Maybe they have years of experience in this particular area. And so it's something that I've learned to respect. But what I've learned is that sometimes when I personally, and maybe you guys agree with me, sometimes when I engage people in discussions, sometimes they demonstrate that they're not really qualified to have a discussion because they don't really know a lot about certain philosophical ideas, maybe about the Bible, and the references that they're making is not from the Bible, but it's actually from their imagination, or it's from what another person, somebody they consider a spiritual leader or a pastor or somebody else is saying, and it's not from God's word. And so I love having discussions. I love having an exchange of ideas. Hey. But also I've learned that it's important to, when a person is speaking who demonstrates through their lifestyle, through what they share, the resources that they're making reference to, when they show that they're demonstrate a clear understanding of what they're talking about, I will ask questions. I'm not going to challenge them with other ideas when they're demonstrating that what they're saying is correct, and they're making references. But I find that there are some of us who can find it very difficult to humble ourselves and be quiet and listen and hear out the people that actually understand certain ideas, because maybe they've done the research, maybe they've learned, and it can be very difficult for both men and women, depending on where we are spiritually, intellectually, our level of maturity. And one of the things I learned, and don't get me wrong, because I used to be the guy that for 24 hours I'd go back and forth with somebody online, for a day or two, because I wanted to win the argument. And I learned, as a Christian, that's not something that I should be doing. That the Bible teaches very clearly that God resists the proud, but gives grace to the humble. He resists the proud. He resists them. He's not going to walk with them. He's not going to include his blessings, his grace, his mercies with a person who just wants to win arguments and they're not interested in winning souls. Now, we live in a culture, and we had a guest pastor at Core Church today. Today is Sunday, who actually addressed the fact that there are a lot of people who get very offended, and then they think, well, because you offended them, that you're in the wrong. And the truth of the matter is, if you get offended, so what? So what? Yeah, I expect a person to get offended because God's truth is not going to share beautiful things that you want to hear all the time. There's going to be a time where we have to address things that people don't want to hear, like our sinful nature that we inherited, or how we sabotage our lives by doing the things that God doesn't want us to do. And even when we become a follower of Christ and God changes us with the new birth, that we're going to struggle for the rest of our lives on this side of heaven until we are in the presence of God in our new bodies, in glory. And I think that it's very important for us to understand that we, even if we have all these skills and the understandings and things like that, that we're going to be we're going to struggle. We're going to struggle with understanding these things, and grasping humility is not something that a person conquers. No one ever conquers. A person can appear to be pretty humble or very nice, very sweet, but even if they're walking with Christ, no one gets it 100%. Not the way Christ conquered humility and learned and walked in it every moment of his physical life here on earth 2,000 years ago. But when a person stands into a place of understanding things that we don't understand. It's very important for us to ask questions and inquire instead of seeing them as an adversary, and learn from them. And that's something that I've learned. If somebody understands politics clearly more than I do, I'm going to ask them questions about the Republican Party or the Democratic Party, or what their understanding of the history is and things like that. And I always ask questions. I've learned to ask questions instead of always asserting ideas, but ask questions. And what I've learned is the people that are not ready and people who don't understand their perspectives will not be able to answer those questions. But people who actually do understand their perspectives, whether it's politics, theological ideas, philosophy, or whatever else, scientific, they will be able to explain it, and very clearly, and they'll be able to articulate themselves with no major issue. So it's very important to learn to ask questions, but observe when you're in the presence of somebody who clearly knows more than you. And instead of attacking their character and seeing them as an enemy, much like the Pharisees did with Jesus, he was clearly walking uprightly, teaching and loving on people, and sharing his ability to heal. And instead of interpreting those things as godly traits, the Pharisees, these false religious leaders, accused him of using Satan's power to attack people and corrupt this truth of God, and it's really crazy. So it's something that we all have to understand, is that just because a person knows more than you, it doesn't mean that they're your adversary. Take the time to learn from them, study from them, ask them questions, and if a person is genuine, you're going to learn something new. And if you ask questions and they don't know, then maybe it'll inspire them to do some homework. God bless you guys.